Hey, it's Del Jackson. We got a special LL hoop shoot around. We'll call it the holiday version. We have Coach Jeff Hartenstine from Lancaster Mennonite, top rated team in the LL and in District 3. And we also have a special guest, David Bray Jr., who's been doing
hmm
the Keystone Chronicles. And we'll talk about what's been going on and we'll go from there. Let's start with Coach Hartenstein. And I'm going to go to Andy. I'll let Andy kind of introduce and talk to Coach because he's seen the Blazers play a little bit.
Thanks, Coach, for hopping on with us. Much appreciated. And you guys are 8-0 to bring everybody up to speed. You guys had a really big win yesterday as we record. You guys beat Chester at home. From afar, everything certainly seems to be going well. Just give everybody a sense of how things are going down in Blazer country because, like I said, everything certainly seems to be going very well thus far.
Oh, well, first off, thanks for having me. Merry Christmas, guys. Appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, it's been a good start for us. The confidence has been growing with some of the younger guys. The chemistry has been great, and it's just a great vibe right now. We're playing some big teams, big programs, much larger schools, and the desired effect that these moments in these games wouldn't feel too big for these guys is kind of coming into play here. It's starting to work itself out, and we're playing some pretty good basketball.
Ever since the Country Day game, your games really haven't been close in terms of your margin of victory against these teams. Did something click maybe from that Country Day game on? Because, like you said, you've been playing bigger teams in that mix too. They really haven't been close.
We prepare really, really hard for every single game. So there's a very detailed practice plan. Every game is incredibly important to the outcome of the season. So we put a lot of time in, a lot of scout in, and so far guys just have come through in big moments, and all of a sudden the monkey's kind of off their back, and then they're a little bit more comfortable to step into those big moments, step into even larger roles, and it's been great. The whole guys in the rotation, a different guy steps up almost every night and has a huge impact for us. So I can't really put my finger on what exactly happened, in that Country Day game. Those guys come in and they know our stuff, and they push us really hard. But after that, the guys just kind of have gotten this thing rolling, and so far they've been doing great. So I've been trying to stay out of the way as much as I can.
You guys have seen these big bad beasts out of Philly before, whether it's in the off season or in the season. What was the mood like after the game yesterday?
We try to carry ourselves with a tremendous amount of respect for those opponents. Like Chester does not need. There's no signed contract there that like they need to come to Lancaster Mennonite and play us. And so tremendous amount of respect, Keith and their program there. So after the game, I'd say each time we get one of these big wins, it's a little bit more towards business as usual and a little less super excited. But between you and me, just us girls here, there's been a couple of games where I've gotten a little teared up in the locker room because I've been so proud of those guys.
I thought it was really interesting that Chester game, of course, Fisher, big part of the team win, had, I believe, 35, if that's correct. How are you able to not only incorporate a star player like Fisher along with the rest of the team to be able to create such big wins like you had the other day?
However the team success comes, if we're fortunate enough that we kind of run off to a big lead in one of these games, that might cut into his playing time a little bit, or some other guys will have an expanded role. So Fisher gets it that when some of the bright lights are on and there's a big opponent, regardless of who that opponent is, if it's a big one, and we all know who they are, how important his role is in those games. So do we want him having a fantastic game, a career night when we're winning big in a game? No, we need him, to come through huge against a big, kind of gigantic opponent. So he stepped up in a huge way yesterday. We had a few guys step up that afterwards, there's a bunch of people in the crowd that just follow us very closely and have opinions on Lancaster Mennonite basketball. And they pointed out several guys that just look like, man, it's really clicking and they're starting to get it. But Fisher had it going yesterday for sure. So we rode him a little bit.
How do you guys plan on moving forward with such a hot start after the holiday tournament and keep going within the LL?
Right now, kids are out of school. Certain people are kind of leaving for a little bit, family trip type things. We're, practicing at different times. So what you just mentioned, I'm super concerned about. So it's got to be very, very focused, and an effort to try to keep everything business as normal, keep everybody focused on the goal, because we got a big approach to things where it's, every component to the team is super important, whether it's Fisher, Zyree Dixon, whoever it is, every component has to be blowing and going at top speed for us to keep playing like this. So what you mentioned is my number one concern, making sure we make a concentrated effort to keep it going, keep them focused while they're away from school and out of their habits.
I'm gonna let Coach go because I know he's got some stuff to do, and it is the holidays. I appreciate him coming on, Coach. Thank you, Coach Hartenstine. We'll be in touch.
Merry Christmas, guys.
You
Take
too,
care,
Coach.
Dell.
You
Keep
too.
it rolling.
Take care.
Thank you. Let's go, Andy. Let's go to you and David, and let's talk about the Keystone Chronicles a little bit.
Where's to start? You got two teams currently 6-0, Milton Hershey and Hershey, of course, just a couple blocks from each other. What's more exciting than that? Two rival teams, both starting out with hot starts, along with Mannheim Central, which was something I don't think any of us expected so far with the hot start they've had. Hershey, they've been able to beat LS. They're at home. They were able to do a very good job against the Lower Dauphin. They beat handily. They were able to beat Mechanicsburg, who expected themselves to go undefeated to start the year. And Milton Hershey, they've done such a good job to start the year. They beat McDevitt by 2 on the road, which was an environment that I was at and something I haven't seen in a long time. Mifflin County had a hot start. Unfortunately, Jack Curry, who is, of course, the coach's son, he is day to day as of right now. He's been out for the past 5 games with a foot injury. Same with Zach Keller. He's been out for the last 4 games, I believe, and he's got the same kind of foot injury. So lingering injuries for Mifflin County is really stopping them from being who they truly are this year. Palmyra is a team that I expected to not have the start they did, but hey, I mean, they're sitting 2-4 going into the Warwick game. Mechanicsburg 6-1. Lower Dauphin right now is doing really well. They're 4-2 right now, or sorry, 3-3 right now, but they probably shouldn't be because they lost by 1 point to East Pennsboro. They were battling with Hershey up until the final 4th quarter, and same with Milton Hershey. So there's a lot of teams within the 5A and 6A, which are going to be real exciting going into the playoffs.
Hey, David, just give us a brief. How does it work for the Mid-Penn? But how did their playoff structure work?
So there's one team from the Keystone, one team from the Commonwealth, one team from the Colonial, and I forget the fourth. I think it's the Capital Conference. I'm not 100% sure, but they take the top team from the 4 and then they throw them into a bracket. So it's just 4 teams. Honestly, I feel like it should expand to have more because I feel like if Mechanicsburg was in last year, they would have made some noise.
They use the PowerPoints district.
Yeah, the power rankings.
Okay. All right. It's just a little different for Mid-Penn than it is for the LL. And I think down the road, Andy, I think we're going to see some of those teams in the Mannheim Central. I don't know what it's called, whatever we're going to call it, but there's some LL teams and some Mid-Penn teams and some Burke teams, and they're all going to meet in Central. I think it's January 18th, I believe.
Correct. Mannheim Hoop Fest is the official name.
Go. I love it. I love it.
Off the top of my head, I know it starts with Twin Valley and Penn Manor. Mannheim Central plays Redland at 6:30.
Cedar Cliff plays Hempfield at 1:30.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And I know Lower Dauphin plays Ephrata at.
That's right.
LLHoops.com on the YouTube. We'll do games, but they'll be on NFHS. They won't be on our YouTube station. So you have to have NFHS to see the live stream. But we plan on doing 5 games that day anyway. So it's always good to see some different teams, see some players, and I think it's good for the teams.
So as far as we are concerned over here, I have a lot of thoughts, but I don't have a lot of answers. Section 1, I have no idea what's going, like what to make of that race. You had Cedar Crest lose to McCaskey. You have Penn Manor, who's sitting at 3-0 right now. What's going to be interesting, guys, is Penn Manor, if the brackets fall right, and if Penn Manor handles the business against Dallastown and Warwick does the same against Lancaster Catholic, you could have the top team in Section 1 playing the top team in Section 2, Penn Manor and Warwick, in the final of Warwick's holiday tournament this week. So that could be really fun.
Wow.
But if the first couple of games are any indication, I think it's going to be a really fun race to see who eventually climbs out of the first two slots there. Section 2, I haven't seen everybody, but I think I have a pretty good handle on it. And I say that because I saw Warwick on Friday night over at Calico, and that was a 2-0 versus 2-0 division game to start.
Mhm.
Warwick ended up getting the running clock on Calico's floor. They ended up winning. They won by 25, but it was 30 points in that game. And guys, you can just tell, like, Warwick is, first of all, I think they have a whole nother level to go yet, which is alarming for everyone in 6A and certainly everyone in LL Section 2. I think Parker Horst is a perfect point guard for what that team needs, kind of sets the table, gets everybody involved, more than capable of doing his own scoring when, the time presents itself. Your Majesty Washington, all you need is about 2 possessions to watch him and be like, oh yeah, that's a clear college basketball player. And not a lot of other teams have that. Salisbury at Conestoga Valley is going to be a college player, but since he's only a freshman in high school, we're about 4 to 5 years from, seeing that and become realized. But yeah, I just think Warwick right now is probably a step ahead. And then after that, Effort is also unbeaten. And, that's a big rivalry game. And they're a 6A school too. And they like to slow the game down and shrink it. And I'm going to be very interested to see what happens in those two matchups when they play, because that's one of the matchups that hasn't happened here yet thus far in the early season. Now, Section 3 wise, LS, although they have the one loss that David, you alluded to, overall, they're undefeated in the section. LS just reloads. They just know winning and they know nothing but. Mannheim Central, as you also mentioned, they came down from Section 2 and they're undefeated too. They're not going to, I saw them earlier in the week against Lancaster Catholic. They're not necessarily going to blow you away with like get off the bus type looking dudes, but they just do everything right. Coach Fisher is such a good coach. They run their system so incredibly well. They had a 3-headed monster of attack the other night. Now Landon Zizet is probably the best athlete of the bunch. He had a really powerful dunk above a whole bunch of traffic the other night. And it's just unfortunate that I looked at the roster again and I forgot he's a senior. He's just one of those players that you're just like, man, if he had another year, he would be one of these names we would talk about for next year and beyond, just because he has so much talent and so much upside. So if they get a ton out of Zizet, which I think they can, yeah, Mannheim Central is going to be a real problem in Section 3. And then, oh, by the way, Octorara, who also schedules up, who also beat Westchester Henderson just like Mennonite did. Yeah, they also only have one loss overall. So that's going to be a nasty race. I don't know who's going to come out on that, but you have 3 really, really, really good teams that are getting out of the gate strong. And then, Section 4, we just talked to them, Lancaster Mennonite. How do you knock anything on their resume if you even wanted to? They're 8-0. They're beating all the big boys. It's just, you have to marvel at it. And I'm glad we had Coach on tonight, because I think, to me, maybe the overarching thing that we're going to be using when describing this conference as we get down to the championship week is this finally the year? Meaning, is this finally the year that a small school can do this? Because if you look at Mennonite, they played Unionville, a 5A state playoff team from a year ago. They won by 30. They just beat Chester by 25. I need to say no more when talking about Chester. I don't care what version of Chester it is. They beat Westchester Henderson. Are any of those 3 teams, maybe, would they be the prohibitive favorite in the LL if they came in? I don't know, because again, Chester is 0-2 against the league, oddly enough. They also lost to Cedar Crest. But there's the point being that there is no like sticker shock when Mennonite plays these bigger schools. And yes, the Warwicks of the world are going to be out there. I just don't think it is necessarily an impossible task as many would think. And this might be the year that history gets debunked, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a big 5A, 6A school that can get the job done. I certainly think a team like Mennonite is capable of it. And yeah, you have Anvil Cleona also in there in Section 4 too. 37 points. Elijah Schlaball. I saw that in person. He didn't score for the first 7 minutes of the game. It's still at 37. It's ridiculous how good that kid can play. And what's key for them is they have a game up on Country Day. They beat Country Day last week. So right now they're sitting pretty in the standings. Country Day is going to be hanging around out there too. So that's what I got. That's what I got. Some things I can make sense of, others I can't. But we got a ways to go, fellas. We're only a couple of weeks in, but now's when you're starting to see the narratives and sort of the storylines shape up for how we might be looking at things moving forward.
We had a bunch of kids hit 1,000 points this last week or two. Let's talk real quick about them.
Yeah, so Chase Smucker at LS went over 1,000. Did it at the free throw line. So yeah, Chase hit 1,000. That was only a matter of time. Fantastic score for LS. He's the one who really stirs the drink for them. Going to Bloomsburg, as we mentioned at Media Day. So there's a college level player we can talk about. Caleb Johnson from Warwick also hit 1,000 this week. And when I was giving my little rundown of Warwick, I didn't even mention him. And he just hit 1,000 points. That's how deep and how talented Warwick is. Yeah, those are the two that we had hit last week. Cooper Trusky from Ephrata set the school record for threes last week against Conestoga Valley. A lot of scoring going on, and we have more in the tank. I think Michael Lauer at Penn Manor is next in line probably to get 1,000 here in a few games.
Schleiball, is he close?
Yes, I was just going to say yes. Schleiball was my next in line. He's sitting at 880 and change, I believe. So with the way he scores, what's another? I mean, he's basically averaging 25, 30 a night. So that'll fall by the wayside here pretty quick. So yeah, we're going to have a ton of scoring and a ton of scorers get their names up on banners here in gyms in relatively short order.
Andy, talk about the website. What are we doing in LLHoops? What's new? What's different? What's getting traction?
But we're still doing a lot of the same stuff that I think a lot of people have come to know and love. Well, you know, everything's free. We can do the standings. You can get the scores every night. I enjoy that. I love, snooping and searching for scores in a parking lot after the game so I can get them up real quick. Still doing my stories every night after games. I know David's doing his weekly recap so we can get a gist of what's going on in the Mid-Penn. Trying to get a new social media presence. Well, I shouldn't say new, but we're looking to expand on what we had before. And by all indications, it seems to be working. So
I do know we're doing something new. Joe Schindler's doing something kind of new for us. You mentioned it in a tweet, and that seems to have some good traction as well.
Yeah, everyone likes to know who the high scorers are from the week. So Joe does the yeoman's work of scouring the box scores that we get from coaches and doing the math on everybody. And he had a lot of work to do this week. We had Jelani Porter go for 40. Yeah. We had Jelani Porter go for 35. We had Pettigrew from Township go for 31. I saw Schleiball have 37. Yeah. Smucker is going off for 24, 25 almost at least once every week. Yeah. Sawyer Floyd from Donegal's doing basically the same too.
There's a lot Fisher just at 34.
Exactly. Right. There's so much scoring, there's so much offense that it's hard to keep track, but
we'll have the schedule up for the Christmas tournaments, I'm assuming, more or less. And we got a lot of tournaments coming up. As a coach, as an ex-coach, right now it's kind of a time for reset, kind of see what your team has. And then I think when you hit that first week of January, leagues come back in and teams kind of know who's in first and who's in second. And all of a sudden, coaches are looking at those PowerPoints. I know they do all the time, but it seems to me like once January hits, that first week, second week, you're playing teams on your same level, usually the same classification. And now you can start looking down the line and say, oh, that Cumberland Valley team is a big, bad team, and they're going to be right there at the end.
That whole section's interesting, especially since Carlisle and Central Dauphin are so good right now, and then Cumberland Valley just wipes the floor with Central Dauphin like it was no problem. Like, it made no sense to me, but it's just how competitive the Mid-Penn is right now. And I've already been looking at power rankings. I mean, I think Warwick moving up gives Hershey and Milton Hershey a better chance this year, especially with how good they are. And I think, honestly, the 6A, 5A are wide open. There's so many good teams from both the LL and the Mid-Penn. It just makes everything more fun, right? So
there's no doubt when the temperature outside goes down, the temperature inside goes up. So for sure.
So I will end it for tonight, fellas. Thank you so much. We'll be in contact. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody who's watching. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, guys.